Okay, Sergeant, cut it.
Yes, sir. You're going to be fighting one of these days. That's why you're in training now. You're going to be fighting against men who have good equipment, too, who also intend to win. Your best guarantee to get the other fellow before he gets you depends upon your ability to handle your equipment, your ability to get your guns into action fast, and to aim and fire them accurately. Now, this is a good tank, one of the best in the world. It has a 75mm gun with a machine gun mounted coaxially. It has an anti-aircraft gun. It has a bow machine gun. It has plenty of firepower, shock action, and armor protection. It's big, it's fast, and it's tough. But no tank, no matter how good, is better than the men inside. I'm going to show you how to use $70,000 worth of armament and metal that wouldn't be worth 70 cents without you. I've got a demonstration crew here to help me. There are 5 men in the M4 tank crew. The driver, of course, drives the tank. The bow gunner handles the bow machine gun. He's sometimes called BOG, short for bow gunner. The loader loads both the 75 and the coaxial. He also operates the radio. The gunner aims and fires the 75 and the coaxial. And the tank commander runs the show and handles the anti-aircraft gun. Each man in a trained crew knows all 5 jobs, and knows them well. He's got to. If something happens to your gunner in a fight, you haven't got time to figure out just what the hell he did to make the gun fire. You've got to know. Let's start at the beginning. Before any tank can go into action, in combat or on the range, it must be prepared for action. Getting ready to go into action, the driver and bow gunner close their hatches so that when the gunner tests his turret traverse, the 75 won't smack against an open hatch. With the hatches closed, they shove their periscopes up into travel position and check them to see if they're clean and tightly set. After testing his periscope, the bow gunner checks the headspace on the bow gun. When he's sure everything's okay, he half-loads the gun. The men in the hall are ready. Now the gunner. First of all, he's got to be certain the hatches are closed.
Hatches.
All clear. And there's enough oil in the power traverse system. The oil level in the gauge should be even with the 2 top screws. Now he unlocks the turret. Make sure it's unlocked by traversing it manually right and left. And pushes up the clutch lever to shift from manual traverse. Sometimes he has to jiggle the manual hand wheel in order to shift. He spins the manual traverse wheel to be certain it's disengaged. Puts the power traverse in neutral. The grip must be straight up and down. And turns on the turret motor. He checks it by traversing back and forth. Another thing. Did you see him look up when he turned on the power traverse switch? That's because a power traverse motor also operates the gyro stabilizer pumps, and the gunner has to watch the gyro oil level gauge. That is what he saw. If the oil column had dropped like this when he turned the switch, he would have known that there was air in the system. When the column stays where it belongs, halfway between the 2 top sets of screws, and doesn't drop, the gunner knows his gyro oil system's okay. He releases the 75 from its traveling lock before he turns on the gyro. he makes sure his gyro control unit is vertical, sets the stiffness control knob at 0, and checks the control unit plug. Then he switches on his stabilizer and frees the gun from manual elevation. And now he adjusts his stabilizer to his gun. He turns the stiffness knob up past the point where the gun hunts or jerks up and down, and then turns it down to the point where the hunting stops. He sets the recoil knob on 5. He'll adjust it more accurately while he's firing. Having shifted to power traverse and gyro control, he makes sure his gun elevates and depresses properly. Then, unless he expects to fire from a moving position, he turns off his gyro. Next, the gunner checks the firing mechanisms of the 75 and coaxial. He switches the 75 off manual safety and steps on the foot pedal that fires the big gun mechanically. The click of the firing pin tells him the mechanical control is working. He turns on the juice, and after the loader has recocked the piece, he tests the electric controls of both the 75 and coaxial by stepping on the foot buttons. He turns the switch off until he's ready to fire. Finally, he pushes his sight up to travel position and makes sure it's clean and tight. The loader also has plenty to do when a tank's being prepared for action. He takes care of the coaxial first. He checks the headspace, just as the assistant driver checked the headspace of the bow machine gun, half-loads it, and it's ready for action. It's up to the loader to see that the bore of the 75 is clean and clear. He opens the breech, flips the handle back to its original position, and looks through the barrel. When he's checked his guns, he makes sure his ready rack is full, and all shells are clean without dents or rough spots. The gunner has to swing the turret around so the loader can get to the little gas motor that runs the Homelite auxiliary generator. He opens the gas line valve, pushes the choke to the right, and presses the starter button. When the engine starts, he pushes the choke to the left again. The loader, like the gunner, sets and checks his periscope last. Those are the things a tank crew does to get ready to fire. We took them slowly, man by man, to study them. But actually, they all happen at once and fast. Let's watch it again. The driver and bow gunner close their hatches and set up their periscopes. And the bow gunner checks and half-loads the bow machine gun. The gunner puts the turret into power control, adjusts his stabilizer, tests his firing switches, and checks his periscope. The loader loads the coaxial, checks the bore of the 75, inspects the ammunition, turns on the Homelite, and finally raises his periscope to travel position. Every one of those preparatory steps is absolutely necessary. When you go into combat, you've got to know your guns will work, your ammunition is clean and undented, and your turret will traverse when you need to traverse. You can be sure of your tank only if you check everything thoroughly while you've got time. There's one other thing to do before you're ready to fire. Your 75 and its sight work together. They're both mounted in the turret, and they traverse when the turret traverses. They're connected by a linkage arm, and the sight moves up and down when the gun moves up and down. You aim the gun by traversing and elevating or depressing it until you pick up your target in your sight. I don't need to tell you that you won't hit what you're aiming at unless the gun and sight are lined up with each other. But travel vibration and gun recoil may jar the sight out of alignment. You therefore sight adjust the 75. It's easy. You simply line up both sight and gun on some distinctive object at least 1,000 yards away. The farther away, the better. Any prominent landmark will do. Church steeple, telephone pole, or a silo. If you're sight adjusting at night, use a star if you can. Best bet around here seems to be a tree.
Sergeant. Yes, sir.
See that large tree over there with the small ones grouped around it?
Yes, sir.
We'll use it.
Adjust your sight on that large tree. Traverse right.
Crosshairs are fixed on the muzzle to help you sight adjust. Black thread is carried for this purpose, but string or even fine wire can be used if necessary.
Right. There. Now up just a hair.
The loader lines up the gun with a landmark by sighting through the open breech. Then he removes the percussion mechanism and sights through the firing pinwheel to get his gun lined up more exactly. The loader and gunner continue moving the gun until the intersection of the crosshairs rests exactly on the top of the landmark, the tip of the tree in this instance. With the gun in perfect alignment, the gunner lines up the sight by turning the sight adjustment knobs. He uses the zero dot of his reticle as the center point. And that's all there is to sight adjusting. Line up first your gun and then your sight on some distinctive object at least 1,000 yards away. When the sight adjustment is correct, the loader replaces the percussion mechanism and the gunner makes a record of the knob readings. You'll have to adjust your 4 periscopic sight heads separately and keep a record of each. Sight adjust all the heads when you have plenty of time and recheck at least the one in your sight just before firing. When you fight buttoned up, the tank commander dismounts the anti-aircraft gun and stows it in the turret. And now we're ready for action, with our tank tight as a drum, the sight in 75 in alignment, and all preparatory steps completed. Let's see some action.
Driver.
Driver, ready.
Fog.
Fog, ready.
Loader.
Loader, ready.
Gunner.
Gunner, ready.
That's a pretty familiar sound, isn't it? It isn't familiar only to you men. A lot of the people we're fighting have come to know that sound too, and they duck and run like hell when they hear it. It's your tank talking the only language the Axis understands. Here are some of the reasons he understands it so well. This was a Jap machine gun nest. Now it's a Jap graveyard, because an American light tanker knew when to use canister. This was a German supply column. Tracers from 30 caliber machine guns used at the right time set the trucks on fire. We've seen some of the effects. Now let's get to the causes. A tank can advance and maneuver and shoot, but it can't think. Somebody has to decide when to stop and when to keep moving. Which is the best firing position? What kind of ammunition to fire? Those decisions are up to the tank commander, but the principles involved are things every one of you needs to know. If you're a medium tanker, here are the kinds of ammunition you've got. Your machine gun ammunition includes AP and tracer. For your 75 millimeter gun, first you have HE. Then you have APC, which is an HE projectile with an armor-piercing cap. It penetrates, then explodes. And also you have smoke. There's a slight difference in a light tank supply. For its 37 millimeter gun, a light tank carries canister, but no smoke shells. Each weapon and type of ammunition has its own special job. Machine gun fire is effective against enemy personnel. So is canister, but only at ranges up to 200 yards. HE is effective against personnel and unarmored and lightly armored material up to the limit of visibility. Your ability to observe and adjust your fire is what limits your range. Used at proper ranges, APC will knock out pillboxes as well as tanks and armored cars. The effective range of the 75 millimeter gun in a medium tank firing APC is about 2,000 yards. But remember, the 37 millimeter gun in a light tank firing APC is effective against tanks only up to 400 yards, and against other armored vehicles only up to 1,200 yards. Smoke is to screen you from the enemy. You've got to understand the capabilities and limitations of your tank and its guns before you go into battle. Know how to get the most out of what you've got. To show you some of the situations you should know how to handle, we're going to take a tank through a theoretical combat course. Various situations will be illustrated, each of which presents a different problem as regards selection of targets, type of ammunition, use of machine gun or cannon or both together, maneuvering, and taking cover. In each case, you'll have to think quickly, figure all the factors, and do the right thing. To make it realistic, you'll be under simulated hostile fire. Let's figure that's your tank. It's loaded with live ammunition as though for actual combat. Button up tight and adjust your periscopes. They give you the red flag and you're off. All right, suppose now you're in hostile territory. The first thing you run into is an enemy machine gun nest directly ahead of you, about 200 yards away. Notice that the finishing touch consists of running down the enemy position, smashing the gun for good. If you run into enemy machine guns strongly emplaced and machine gun fire doesn't get the desired results, use HE. Let's take another look at that action on a sand table. An enemy machine gun in your line of fire opened up on you. You kept moving and returned the fire immediately with your own machine guns. It wasn't necessary to make for cover. A machine gun can't do you much harm while you're buttoned up. Using your machine gun conserved your big gun's ammunition. In a medium tank, you carry about 8,000 rounds for your machine gun and about 100 for your 75. In this next problem, another machine gun opens fire on you, this time from your left flank. At the same time, an anti-tank gun starts blazing away from the front. Now what are you going to do? You have two enemy guns firing at you at the same time. In a situation like this, forget the enemy machine gun and move to cover, firing at the primary target, the anti-tank gun, while moving. That's what your gyro stabilizer is for, to help you shoot accurately while on the move. In this case, there's another reason for ignoring the enemy machine gun. Being off to one side of your path of advance, it's a job for the tank on that side of you. Once you reach cover, maneuver to a firing position as near the primary target as possible, unless you've already knocked it out. Now fire from a stationary position with HE set for delayed action against the anti-tank gun. Move after each couple of shots. Keep the enemy guessing, and you can lam into him before he knows where you are. Keeping in mind the things you've just learned, watch this next situation carefully. Here are enemy personnel on your right. And up ahead is an enemy gun waiting for you. You fire at the enemy gun without stopping and disregard the infantry. After you've knocked the gun out, continue on your way. To get this entire situation onto the sand table, all distances have been shortened. You saved yourself a lot of trouble by quick thinking. You picked the primary target, the anti-tank gun. You kept moving toward it, which was right in this case because cover was too far off on your flank to be of any use. And you fired while you moved. You ignored the secondary target, the infantry. And you fired the right ammunition, HE set for delayed action. In most situations, you can expect the terrain around an anti-tank gun to be mined. That's why you use HE to knock out the gun crew and demolish the gun from close range, and then skirt around the emplacement, giving it plenty of room. In this next situation, you have an enemy AT gun well concealed up ahead on the hillside. You have a choice of two firing positions, the woods on your left or the hill on your right. Well, look it over on the table. Suppose you chose the woods. Your field of fire would be limited, and the enemy would have a pretty good crack at you, especially if the woods are too heavy to permit much moving around. Also, once the enemy had spotted your position from your muzzle blast, the woods wouldn't be much protection. Now let's see why the hill is a healthier place. The most important reason is that it gives you a good defilated position. It gives protection, and you present a smaller target to the enemy. Here's how it looks when it's done right. You can see that the hill gives you a good field of fire and freedom to maneuver. Even though you're in a defilated position, utilize that freedom to maneuver to change your position after every couple of shots. This will keep you a jump ahead of your enemy's gun sights. Remember, the hill gives a tank cover, whereas woods offer only concealment. Here's a case where no matter how much you may need concealment, you haven't any. It's a bad spot to find yourself in, but sometime you might be caught in the open like this. Remember what we told you on the firing line? Smoke, that's the stuff. Remember the old saying, they can't hit what they can't see. Your smoke will keep them blinded until you maneuver out of danger. You're batting 1,000. Now watch that whole action again. Never forget that you carry one kind of concealment with you at all times. It's good tactics to smoke the enemy while you maneuver for a protected place from which you can get at him. Smoke is also particularly useful when you don't know exactly where your opponent is. A smoke screen gives you a chance to sneak around and reconnoiter. Keeping smoke in mind, what would you do if 2 enemy guns open fire on you, both of which are equally dangerous? Smoke one of them. With that one temporarily neutralized, you can concentrate on the other. Maneuver into a position to knock it out. Then, after taking care of that one, go to work on the one you smoked. There's no rule about which target to smoke, but if 2 or more strong guns seem to have you trapped, smoke is your best bet. It'll protect you from one of the guns while you engage the other. So far, you've only run into enemy guns and personnel. Here's something different, a fortified position, a pillbox. When attacking a fortified position like a pillbox, move immediately to a defilated position. Stop before you fire. You'll be more accurate. Then, using APC M61 with base detonating fuse M66, fire at the loopholes. Even if the loopholes are closed or you miss them, the APC will penetrate and burst inside, killing off the enemy and making the pillbox useless. Look at the next problem on the sand table first. You run into a batch of infantry. What you do will depend on whether you're fighting from a medium tank or a light tank. If you're in a medium tank, knock them off with your machine guns. If you're in a light tank, you'd do exactly the same thing until you got within 200 yards. Then open up with canister from your 37mm gun and use your machine guns to fill in the pauses while you're loading. This is the result of canister. Here's your next problem as it would look on the sand table. Suppose an enemy tank puts in an appearance. Don't give him a chance to get set. Open fire immediately while you dig for cover. APC is what the doctor ordered in this case. HE can be fired at tanks in a pinch, but APC will penetrate the armor and explode inside. Keep your opponent guessing. Change your position after every couple of shots. He can't hit you if he doesn't know where you are. This is what an enemy tank looked like after being hit with APC. Up to now, nothing serious has happened to you. But suppose you got into trouble. Suppose you got a track knocked off and were stuck in one spot. Stay with your tank and keep banging away with everything you've got. Stay alert and shoot at every flash of the enemy's guns. As long as your guns can fire, your tank is tough. Remember, use the right weapon and the right ammunition against the right target. Machine guns for enemy personnel. HE for unarmored vehicles and positions. APC for armored positions and vehicles. Smoke when you're in trouble. If you're a light tanker, canister for personnel at ranges up to 200 yards. When there's more than one target, choose the most dangerous. Take advantage of all available cover and concealment. Stop to fire whenever you can. If you must fire while moving, be sure to use your gyro. Maneuver to the best possible firing position. Use machine guns whenever they'll be effective to conserve your heavier ammunition. Change your position when the enemy locates you and starts to get your range. And keep on fighting and firing as long as you have the stuff. There goes your tank. Look at it. Strength, maneuverability, firepower, everything it takes to win battles except training and brains. These are the things you've got to supply to make the combination unbeatable. Brains and training.